So I finally got to the Arise scene for Solo Leveling. I heard a few people mentioning the word Arise quite a few times when I was doing my Solo Leveling first impressions, but also the follow-up video after that, and I was kind of curious exactly what it was about. I had my suspicions, but I was still very curious, and so obviously I kept reading. And I finally got to the scene that everybody was apparently talking about. And this, truthfully, has made me fall in love with this series. Like, I've already been enjoying reading Solo Leveling, but there's something so amazing about a character being a necromancer. And it kind of peeks into some of the things that I just really love when it comes to literature and storytelling, whatever. I really love characters like Jin, the character that is our MC for Solo Leveling. I've always been a big fan, fascinated by necromancers. It's one of the reasons why I love Overlord so much, is because Ainz as a necromancer is really freaking cool. And, you know, it made me play countless games in the past growing up, like Diablo 2, Diablo 3. I love the necromancer class. It's always really cool, it's always unique. I always thought it was awesome being able to create your own army using the dead and all that and turning them into your own army to fight for you. I just always loved it. And even though the characters are always have this dark origin or whatever, I love it. It's the stuff I love. And so, seeing how some of the things that I witnessed in this reminds me of things that I heavily love, like even Arthas from, you know, World of Warcraft, or, you know, Warcraft 3, I'm just like, yeah, you know, this series is definitely something I know I'm going to enjoy from this point forward, because now I'm going to have our MC, you know, bringing the dead back and using them to fight for him. So there's just, there's a lot of great things from this latest arc I read. So, to get right into it, Solo Leveling. I think you guys know, for me to already be this deep in within the series, I definitely have an interest, and I do want to keep reviewing the story, and that is what I'm going to do. I'm definitely going to be catching up, and I'm definitely going to be doing more reviews for Solo Leveling, and I think many of you guys have been enjoying these reviews as well, seeing my reaction to it, just talking about individual scenes, so I think that this is going to probably become the norm to the channel, definitely talking about Solo Leveling. Now, I have heard that a chapter comes out weekly, so that's very good news, and I do know that apparently the light novel or whatever is completed at this time, but most likely I might refrain from reading the light novel for the sheer fact that I would like to stay as a manga reader to be able to just discuss the chapters on a weekly basis, but we'll see where it goes, where time takes us. But for now, though, I am loving this series, and I'm having a hell of a lot of fun each time I sit down and read it. So, okay, getting right into it. Where is the story at right now? What do I think is going to happen, direction, etc.? So, there's a lot of things that I've learned after my last read. Like, you know, when I did my last video with how Jin basically finally had a quest mission that forced him to take the lives of a bunch of people. You know, I've read a lot since then. A lot has happened. You know, Jin as a character has changed, he's gotten stronger, things have been revealed, etc. There's a lot of great things about this, and there's a lot of questions I have as well. One of the big things that we can see clearly from this, you know, these recent arcs I have read at the very least, is that Jin, even though he has definitely gotten very strong very quickly, he is still nowhere near the top level of strength. Now, this is left to be seen after his upgrade. His job changed to where he became like a Shadow Lord. You know, I've yet to see what exactly he is capable of. All I've gotten to now is him being able to summon the undead. You know, take the spirits or whatever and summon them. So that's all I know. So thinking about the ability that he's currently capable of, he could be near the rank of S-Class now, maybe A-Class, but it doesn't change the fact, though, that he's still nowhere near probably the top. And that's not even including monsters in, like, S-rank dungeons, etc., or even the monster that he fought at the beginning of the story that, you know, he had to run from. So whatever may happen, though, I do think that I'm liking the pacing of the story. I figured that he was going to reach the top very quickly. That's what I assumed. And because of that, you know, I'm glad that it hasn't happened. I'm glad that it's taking its gradual time, building him up, getting to see his journey, getting stronger and stronger, and facing these different obstacles that are very hard for him to overcome. Like, the entire arc before he got his Shadow Lord job change or whatever, he fought this individual that was from, like, a guild that was tasked with watching over these prisoners. And obviously, things went rather south. You have it to where the prisoners, they were, you know, completely killed off. You have it to where the dude was getting very happy, and then, you know, he started attacking the regular people that was a part of Jin's original group at the beginning of the story, which, by the way, that was a really good arc. I actually liked that arc a lot. It really just kind of gave us closure to a lot of the things that happened at the beginning of the story that was left to be really said. For instance, the female character. I think that was one of the most important parts about it, was that the female character, it was set up in the early stages of the story that she would be like maybe a love interest or something for Jin, but obviously that has not happened, at least yet. I mean, it's still possible later on down the road, but she has now, since that arc and, you know, what happened in that arc, you know, with him having to defend them and reuniting with them, she retired. So because of that, he's not really going to be going on adventures with her, seeing her ever again. It's kind of sad, really, but because of his new step, his path he has taken now with the latest changes with the arc I just read, it makes sense why she's kind of out of the story and the premonition that was said, etc. But even then, though, I am glad we got some closure to some of the characters, especially those that ran off and left him. Like, you know, the one character that left him to die at the beginning is like, I have a family and all that, and I gotta survive, and he left him to die. Seeing that conclusion from that character, how he's like, I'm sorry, I'm really sorry, but then he dies, I think it was a great moment because it means that there won't be any animosity. There won't be hard feelings towards that character anymore because Jin heard the apology. Even if he doesn't want to accept it, the character died. And because the character died, you know, he has to accept the fact that in his final moments, instead of being bitter or whatever, he said, I'm sorry, he died, and Jin now doesn't really have a target for hatred anymore, so he can kind of look past it. But then you have the guy that also left him, even though he willingly, like, he was forced to leave because Jin said to leave him, he said sorry as well. He bowed down, sorry for being, like, a bad leader, leading us into that problem, I'm very sorry. You know, there was a lot of good moments that was done to kind of give, like I said, closure to the beginning stage of the story, so that's a great arc. It's fundamentally a great arc that was needed, and I'm glad it got settled very quickly. Now, once that happened, things kind of got into a little bit of a mini arc. This mini arc was basically about Jin gaining a lot of money very quickly and doing pretty much every single C-rank dungeon that he could get his hands on with the dude he saved a while back in my previous video. And it really shows that how strong he's gotten, because when you look at the early stages, he was someone that couldn't do E-rank dungeons. And then he did, like, you know, a higher rank dungeon, like a little temp dungeon or whatever. He got very strong, and then now he's able to do C-rank dungeons with relative ease, destroy them completely, and just challenge anyone. And then we also know that he took down Cerberus, which was like an S-rank dungeon, but he couldn't go any further just because of how strong Cerberus was after, you know, he finished him, so he had to leave. But we do know now that he is capable of, at the very least, maybe A-class dungeons. It's probably something he could do. He'd probably struggle a little bit, but he is now capable of that. And now having undead soldiers to fight for him, he's kind of able to rest now, because even if he's physically strong, he's able to fight on his own. It's pretty good that he's kind of able to have minions now, because, like, if he needs to rest, which you saw in the dungeon, the job change, dungeon, is that when he tried to rest, he was attacked. He had no time to rest. But now that he can probably summon minions that don't have really any energy, fatigue, etc., because that's usually what undead means, they could just be watching and protecting him as he, like, rests to try to get his, fatigue down and, heal up. And dungeons like that has a lot of restrictions. So I think it's a really good change for the story, just to see that now he's progressing as a person to be able to do these higher ranked dungeons in a logical manner. So, okay, to get right into it, let's talk about Ignis. I believe that's how you pronounce the name. A lot of Dark Souls vibes. Like, I had so many Dark Souls vibes while reading that moment. Like, the design alone, okay? The design alone looks exactly like Artorias. If you've ever played Dark Souls, if you know anything about the lore, if you've even seen the cover of Dark Souls 1, then you will instantly recognize the design of this character is very, very similar to Artorias. And I am very, very curious if the writer of Solo Leveling was inspired by Dark Souls. I mean, it's possible. Dark Souls has been around for a while. I think it came out in like 2009 or 11. It's been a long time. It's came out a very long time ago. It has definitely had some age to it now since it came out. And it's not a bad thing. Dark Souls is still an amazing game. I've actually recently been replaying Dark Souls 3. But, Artorias is an iconic character. Easily one of the most iconic characters of the entirety of the trilogy. And the character's constantly been used. And so seeing how the design of Ignis was very similar, I'm like, I wonder if the writer was inspired just because of it, but the fighting style as well, with the sword and everything, it seemed like that. And then, when the knight got summoned, when Jin actually revived him, that's when I was even more certain that it was a Dark Souls vibe. Because when you think about the story of Knight Artorias in Dark Souls, Knight Artorias, he was someone that was a gifted knight, very insanely strong, and he gave up his only shield that was able to repel the abyss by giving it to his companion. And he got consumed by the abyss, and then he basically became a monster that he had to fight in the DLC of Dark Souls 1. And it's kind of fitting that when you really think about what the comparisons were being done to Jin, is that he was like this dark abyss. He was this endless abyss that would consume you, and it's kind of like the knight gave up his only protection and got consumed and became a dark knight. That's what I get from it. I mean, I do think it's not going to be as dark as that, but it is kind of similar in that regard of how he was revived and corrupted kind of in a way to be like a summon. It's pretty cool, but I think the character Ignis is going to have a lot going for him, and I'm curious to see exactly how long he's going to stick around and be useful. He probably is going to become very iconic in my personal opinion. So, anything else to really talk about? I really don't think so. I guess the only thing to really talk about is that there is an S-Class, which was stated in my previous video, that's going to be coming after, and the question is how long until that happens, because at this time, I don't know if he could actually beat an S-Class. I mean, Shadow Lord, it's a question that I don't understand. Maybe he can now, but I still think he would struggle against an S-Class. We'll see, though. But let me know your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoy my content, please subscribe. If you got this video, please leave a like. And if you want to get notified for whenever I upload a video, please click the bell icon down below. And one last thing, though, before I wrap up this video. Once again, as a reminder, which I've already said in a previous video, I'm going to be busy this weekend for about 4 to 5 days. I'm going to be in Florida to deal with the stuff with my sister and all that. I've talked about it, and so if you followed up with that, then you know why. So I kind of prepped a bunch of videos in advance for you guys, so you're probably going to see different videos each individual day, but I will catch back up to the stuff I missed when I come back. So I just want to clarify. But okay, I love you guys. Chibi out.